All right, everyone. Final seat call. Take your seats. Thank you. Thank you all. Just come on in. Take a seat. Hello? Hello? Hello, everyone. Hello. All right. Let's start. Let's kick this off. Hi, I'm Rich Lobel. Hi, everyone. I'm a recovery coach here at Mountainside Chelsea, recovery coach, and I also am a marketing director. We multitask really well at Mountainside. And before we start, I just want to call this to everyone's attention. You have a little movie postcard, and on the back is a QR code. And if you download that QR code, everything you want to know about this evening is on that. More than you want to know is on this QR code. It's chock full of info. So please do look at this, download it, and you'll get everything about tonight. Welcome. So, addiction isn't a choice. It is not a choice. But recovery is a choice. And that's exactly why we set out to make a movie that you're going to see tonight, a short film that you'll see tonight. And what is so, great about this film, it's so, important about this film, is it follows an authentic journey of two people, Rachel and Pete, through the dark shadows of addiction and takes them right through the light of recovery and shows what a life in recovery looks like, the joy, the happiness, the beauty of living a life in recovery. In fact, recovery is love. The love of self, love of friends and family, love of life. Recovery is love. And that's the movie and the story, the narrative that we set out to tell. And it provides hope, optimism, and inspiration. And it also, as part of this movie, we wanted to reduce stigma. And we found the perfect partner, the perfect, organization to work with. And I want to thank Shatterproof for everything they've done and, being the call to action for this film. And, two people in particular, Holly Jesperson, who's Senior Manager of Communications, who can't be with us tonight, and Dr. Lisa Klugler, who is Senior Vice President of the Treatment Atlas, which is all the vital resources connecting people to resources across the country for help in, substance misuse. So I'd like to invite Dr. Klugler to come up and join me for a couple of minutes. Thank you. Yeah, round of applause for Shatterproof. So, I'm going to give this to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So if you could just talk for like 2 minutes, 3 minutes about why, whatever you want. You decide.
Wow. I have the microphone now.
We have a lot to do tonight. So if you could just talk about why Shatterproof was the perfect partner to be the call to action for this film and, just talk about, let us know what your thoughts are.
Thank you so much. And it is so wonderful to see a whole room of people here. As was mentioned, my name is Dr. Lisa Kugler, and I'm Senior Vice President of Treatment Atlas at Shatterproof. Shatterproof was founded as a national nonprofit to address stigma, to help individuals find the most appropriate high-quality care to meet their treatment needs, and to educate and empower communities. We were founded by Gary Mendel, who lost his son, unfortunately, to a substance use disorder. This is a story that is all too common, and he turned that pain and passion into finding a purpose and to really taking that nationwide. For substance use disorder, I started as a psychologist in the substance use field a hot minute ago. We'll just go with hot minute ago. And if this event would have happened in the 90s, I can guarantee we would not have a room full of people. So I want all of you to give a round of applause to yourselves for being willing to be that voice for those who don't believe that they have one at this point in time. We are the hope. I was drawn to substance use disorder care because a mentor of mine once mentioned, there is no other field where you can see a miracle every single day. And I do believe that that is true. Unfortunately, substance use, with some of the most recent statistics, 2 out of 3 individuals in this country are directly impacted either by themselves having a substance use disorder or an immediate family member, yet only about 25% receive care. If this was any other chronic condition, there would be outrage. And unfortunately, because of the stigma, this is not the case with substance abuse. There is a call to action. I encourage all of you to take the information that you received tonight, take this movie, take the online directory, www.treatmentatlas.org, share it loud, share it proud, and be able to be that strength, be that hope, be that inspiration to those who are still struggling. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Lisa, and everyone at Shatterproof. We so appreciate your involvement in this project. So I think that's enough for me, and now we bring you No More Secrets. Thank you.
Let me take a second to introduce myself. My name is David Mattini. I'm a managing director here at Mountainside, and I'd like to take a second just to acknowledge our director and our cast. I'd ask you guys to please stand up and join me. I'm going to start with Chris Temple. I have Rachel. And Pete. It's one thing to have a story, and it's another thing to tell a story. And when you think about the vision and when you think about the finished product that we have here, I wanted to take a second to get the insights from our director and from our stars into their thought process as to what went through it. Chris, I'm going to start with you if you don't mind. I'd ask first, could you give a quick introduction as to yourself and as to Optimist?
Yeah, so my name is Chris Temple. I'm a filmmaker. I've been making films for the last 15 years. And I run a film company called Optimist. We're a nonprofit, and the stories we tell nurture optimism in the world, and they hopefully help people believe that progress is possible. And I think this story was a perfect match for our interest in the work that we do. And when you guys approached us about this film, at first I think there was an instinct to take a story on a social issue like addiction and zoom out, right? To insert facts and put in expert interviews to situate it in context. And I think any of us who have experienced addiction and seen it in loved ones know that there's no expert can capture the messy, raw reality of what addiction truly is. So I think our approach with this film, and I so appreciate Mountainside going in this direction, was to zoom in, was actually to find a universal story in a very singular and personal one. And that was you guys. And I mean, thank you so much for your vulnerability and your trust in me to help tell this story with you, because without your vulnerability in these moments, we wouldn't have been able to create that kind of a personal approach. I mean, you welcomed me into your house as you were sleeping, as you're to have a camera for endless hours, filming with your wife and your kid and your parents. You were willing to do your interviews in this really beautiful way of looking directly into the camera lens, which is a very difficult thing to do. But to me, for now, a viewer who's watching that, maybe at home and doesn't have hope, it feels like you're speaking to them. And that's a really beautiful thing, and you brought that to life. And lastly, I mean, your willingness to share all of your family archival and childhood home videos. I mean, there was a lot more of Tasmanian Devil, Pete, that we didn't include. So, I mean, the real challenge of this film, I think, was trying to fit it into 10 minutes, right? Sometimes making a shorter thing is even harder than making something that's 30 or 40 minutes. And so just huge thanks to Mountainside and your whole staff for the guidance every step of the way to figure out how to navigate that, how to navigate the nuance here and make it possible.
Thank you so much for that, Chris. My next question is going to be for Rachel and then for Pete. But my question is, why did you choose to participate in this project? Why did you choose to tell your story?
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, everyone, for having me here tonight and for coming to celebrate this amazing message and this amazing video. My first response as you asked that, Dave, is why not? There is such a stigma around addiction. There is such a stigma around mental health and our struggles. And we congratulate people when we see them on the streets and they tell you how much time that they have and celebrate that. But how did we get there? And to acknowledge and recognize that we can be Tasmanian devils, or the daughter that my dad thought he lost, and I can stand up here today. And that's not because I checked boxes, but it's because we went through it. We got to be vulnerable and sharing with others that it's okay to feel what you're feeling. It's okay to work through that. And it's also okay to lean on our loved ones. I got to say that has probably been the most monumental and instrumental step in my recovery journey, but also in making this film, was being able to have family a part of it, because I wouldn't be here today without that, and without Mountainside, and without all of you, people in and out of recovery or touched by recovery. I can't do this alone. So I want to help carry that message to know that nobody is alone, and we can do this together.
How do you follow that? Come on. The short answer is to help one more person. This has been an incredible journey to be able to go down, and a challenging one to relive a lot of those moments, open up old wounds that I've worked so hard to overcome, acknowledge them, but don't drift back into them. So much of the work that Mountainside has been able to teach me so that I could have those tools, excuse me, to be able to have the courage and vulnerability to do something like this. I never would have been able to do that without Mountainside, but most importantly, I would not have been able to do it without my wife. You saw a glimpse of what she has been able to do for me, and she is my rock and a huge reason why I wanted to do this, because so importantly, with Rachel's dad, John, and Caitlin being represented in the film, addiction doesn't just hurt the end user, it hurts everybody in that end user's life. But they don't really get to have that message heard that frequently. And so it's such a challenging topic to broach. It's very charged. It's very dark at times. But sometimes in the darkness, there can be humor. There's dark humor kind of everywhere around it if you're willing to look. Not for everybody. Not for everybody at all. But there's one person in particular that has been able to use that dark side of addiction and be able to invite people into the conversation with that dark humor. It was created at Mountainside, the idea, between Dave Manheim and Chris O'Connor, who has sadly passed away, but toodles for Chris, for people that get that. And they learned early on that if you can cut through that stigma and that sensitivity with humor, and people get in the door that way, they'll stay for the treatment and the recovery and the messages that you can give after that. And so just to kind of wrap up our quick question, I know it was a long-winded answer to your question, but I would like to introduce Dave Manheim, who's going to be leading our panel for tonight. So thank you very much, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the film. I appreciate it.
Hi, everybody. How you doing? My name is Dave Manheim. I'm an addict and an alcoholic, and graduate of Mountainside, which is weird. So that's cool. I went to Mountainside in 2011. I was a total disaster, and I met an amazing guy named Chris O'Connor, and we made each other laugh a lot, and we both relapsed a bunch of times, and we got sober again, and in 2015, we started a podcast called Dopey, and I've been doing it for almost 10 years, and Chris died in 2018, and nobody knew he had relapsed, and it was a blow, to say the least, and it affected me very deeply, and it made me want to change the message of Dopey, which is more than drugs, addiction, and dumb shit. It's about hope and recovery and love, like Rich said so eloquently. So I'm very, very honored to be here. I met Pete. There's a documentary thing that time is trying to do, and Pete made the documentary thing, and that's how this all thing happened. But I want to invite the great Dr. Hany from Northwell Health, Dr. Jana Wu, and the great Jason Biggs from American Pie up here. Oh, Dr. Biggs, please. Dr. Biggs of the Pie School of Medicine. And I just want to say that when I was at Mountainside, Jana was one of the clinicians there, and Chris O'Connor was madly in love with her and talked about it on our podcast incessantly. Now, and it was very inappropriate, I have to say that too. Now, on Dopey, we talk about a lot of stuff, and the film was incredible. Chris, Pete, Mountainside, Rachel, such a beautiful movie, all about hope. And like, Dr. Hany said something to me when we were sitting in the front. He said, everybody who's addicted, who suffers from addiction, will be relieved of it eventually. And I thought that was very poignant and also very dark. And Dr. Hany, would you like to explain that? Here, take this.
I think this works.
There you go.
Yes. So I believe, now, I'm Manassa Hany. I'm an addiction psychiatrist. I work with Northwell. I believe that everybody who suffers from addictive disorder will eventually stop, will start to recover. Our job as medical provider is to keep them alive until this point. It will happen, no matter how many times you try and you feel like it's the end of the road. This is not the case. And I applauded you for keep trying. When I asked you how many times did you try, I said, do you want to count detox as well? I said, yeah, sure. and every time you try and not succeed, it's so takes down from your morale, from your family support and all of this. But keep trying. This is the message. Keep coming back. Keep trying. It will happen in the future. We're going to keep you alive. That's what we're going to do.
That's awesome. Jason, how many times did you try?
Oh, shit. Yeah, a bunch. I don't know. I stopped counting. But it was, 4 good years. So, started this journey 12 years ago, and I have 7.5 now totally clean, which is, thank you. You don't have to, thank you. Thank you very much. So yeah, it's funny to me. Something I realized recently is like I feel like I spent the last couple years of my drinking and drugging, my brain telling me that I had a problem, and then the first couple years of my attempt at sobriety with my brain telling me I did not have a problem. And I totally could do this on, I'm fine. I could go back to drinking and drugging and it wouldn't be an issue. But yeah, that's it. Anyway, have a good night, everybody. And
thank you, Jason. And Jana, you've seen so many people walk into Mountainside. How do you recognize if somebody can get it? Can you recognize it?
I don't know if I can actually recognize it, but I think it was Rich, maybe that spoke about it. I love this work because there's so much endless hope in it. It's incredible. It was actually Dr. Lisa. The ability to watch people change their lives is such an incredible privilege. It never gets old. The people I work with are the most interesting people I've ever met, and usually the most compassionate. And so I don't know that I can tell who's going to quote unquote get it or not, but even if they don't get sober, I think there's so much learning along the process that we don't get to do in other realms of our life. Like the film talked about, just getting to be vulnerable and talk about being insecure, not feeling good enough as an adult. Many adults don't get to talk about that and don't get the space. But when you're in treatment, when you're in recovery rooms, you get to share all of that. You get to share where you feel scared, and you don't feel grown up, but you are age-wise. So I think the whole process is never dull.
Absolutely. That's an interesting thing you just brought up, though, the idea of suspended adolescence. How often do you think suspended adolescence plays a part in addiction or recovery, and does it take growing up to get sober? I hope not.
So the problem with drug use, it does hold our natural way of developing the brain. So for instance, in order for our brain to fully develop, probably around the age of 24, 21, 25. And when there is a drug use before these years, the brain doesn't develop the way that it should be, and it takes it longer time. So for instance, if you start using at 17 years of age, your brain will halt, will stop the development, especially the area in the front where we call it the prefrontal cortex. And the longer that you use, this process gets interrupted and interrupted and interrupted. Now you see somebody at the age of 45 and their brain is still at the age of 17. They're not yet fully developed. So one of the things that we try to do is to delay the use. If you want to use drugs, if you want that to be part of your lifestyle, at least wait until the age of 25. Even
I'm sure that works really well.
Yeah. Well, it's right when you can rent a car, so it's perfect. You know? Vacation's going to be a lot more fun. Just wait till you're 25, rent a car at the airport, go get a baggie, and fucking have a great time. Doctor's orders.
Doctor's orders.
Well, at the age of 25, believe me, your decision to start using will be less damaging. This is the spirit of harm reduction as well. Again, if you want to, let's wait until your brain is fully developed. Then your judgment will be way better than 14, than 17. Even for the so-called legal drugs, even for alcohol and cannabis and so forth. I hope I answered your question.
I'm still stuck on 25. Dr. Hany, how do you get a teenager or encourage a young person to... It's like waiting for sex until marriage or something. How could you possibly get somebody to do it? Because I have 2 kids. I have a 15-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I'd like them to wait till 25 and marriage just to keep things safe.
It is very challenging. It's not easy. And I think that should be on a higher level in this society, that even if we want to legalize all... I am for legalizing all kinds of drugs. But at the same time, just do it in a regulated way, not allowed for those who are below the age of 21 or 22, and enforce that really well so people don't just go and use. It's not an easy thing to stop your kids from using.
No, but I understand what you're saying. It's about being really open and being like, if you can wait until you're this age, your brain can develop. Jason, how old were you the first time you got high, just out of curiosity?
Probably 17. I was a late bloomer.
Me too, 17.
I was a late bloomer. I was drinking maybe a little before that, but yeah, first time I got high, 17.
That's why I get along so well with you, because we're both trapped in 17.
That's right. Yeah. Exactly.
It's
exactly right. When he said 45, I mean, I'm 47, but I was like, yeah, that tracks. That feels 17.
Now, when we talked about putting this panel together, something that we talk about on Dopey all the time is harm reduction and the lethality of opiates. And over the years, as we've made the show, Chris, who went to Mountainside, died. My friend Todd, who also went to Mountainside, died. And a countless number of other listeners and members of our community died. It feels to me, because I'm getting less notes of people dying, that the deaths have gotten lessened. And that's something that I really wanted to talk about. Jana, you're a professional, and we have a study that says right here. I just want to mention that Jana...
26.9.
Jana is a professional. Jana, what's the study?
It is that the overdose deaths have gone down by 26.9% in 2023. They're still notably much higher since pre-pandemic levels of overdose. I want to say 35% higher than pre-pandemic. So we are seeing overdoses go down, and there's a lot of complex reasons why. I think the biggest thing is public awareness, access to naloxone or naltrexone, education about naltrexone and MATs. Medications are an incredible option. Treatment awareness. And then also, there are a lot of other substances that people are using. I don't think since the opioid epidemic has shifted that we're in any less pain as a culture. There's still a tremendous amount of physical, emotional, and societal pain. There's a lot of suffering. And I think the focus and the sphere of the epidemic has shifted now. So we see other drug use. We see cannabis at the highest, or THC, most potent THC levels, and cannabis use disorders the highest they've ever been. We see more people using cannabis in every age demographic than we have ever seen before. There are other drugs that I'm very passionate about, such as kratom. If anyone has heard of that, but out there that people are using that have some of the same effects as opioids. That they can relieve tremendous amount of pain. In low doses, they act like a stimulant, and high doses, they can act like an opiate on our opiate receptors. Right. So I think there's a lot of complexity in that decrease in deaths.
Absolutely. And that's another thing that we've found in our podcast is that we hear so much about kratom, and we hear people using kratom harm reductively, and we talk about people who are like, I need to get off of kratom. Dr. Hany, what's your experience around kratom in general?
Well, the same like Jana mentioned about kratom. It's a substance that in a low dose, it acts as a stimulant. So it gives you some energies, like tea or like coffee or methamphetamine. But when people start to say, okay, I want more energy, and start to use higher dose, then it goes to the opposite. It becomes more towards the sedating, high of the opioid. Now, when you go to that place, you just get hooked on it. You start to feel the same. If you try to stop it, you start to feel the withdrawal that you get from opioids. The dependence, the physical dependence of it. Now, if you mentioned harm reduction and kratom, it's perceived as less harmful if you compare it to heroin, if you compare it to fentanyl, which is true. In the spirit of harm reduction, yes, we should help somebody who is doing that to go there. But you're moving from one thing to another, despite the fact that we have something that's proven and well known to really help, that's way better evidence-based. Anybody knows what that is?
Is it Alcoholics Anonymous? No, it's Suboxone. I'm saying it's Suboxone.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
Safe even for pregnant women.
We have buprenorphine. Yeah. It's been around for 20-something years. We tested it. It works. It doesn't cause addiction. And it's safe and it's easy to access. And one point I want to add with why did we have less numbers in terms of overdose? We need to also acknowledge the change in regulations with SAMHSA, with the substance abuse and mental health agencies that now expanded the Suboxone or buprenorphine access to people via telehealth, that we can do that. We can do with anybody. It doesn't have to be somebody with a specific kind of waiver or permit. Now everybody can prescribe it. So that expansion of buprenorphine access also helped a lot to protect people, even they're still using, but they're not going to die.
So you prefer buprenorphine to kratom?
100%.
And Jason, when you were out there ripping and running, did you ever partake in harm reductive tools?
No.
Nothing?
I did not, no.
You weren't like, I'll use this instead of this?
Oh, in that sense. I mean, no.
All right. Thank you, Jason. Very good.
Honestly, it was until the very end. I was put it in front of me, and I'll smoke it, chew it, snort it.
What was the very end?
The relapses were booze and coke only, but the very end was coke and booze and benzos, and my very last sort of bender 12 years ago before I started the journey was booze, coke, Adderall. There were mushrooms in the house. I basically found out my wife was pregnant and then did a whole bunch of shit. But yeah, I mean, I literally, when I was using, I was kind of down for anything. And, that's why, if someone passed me something, didn't matter who, it was like, hey, you want to eat this? And it was any pill, I would have taken it. I'm so happy and grateful that my recovery journey started before the fentanyl problem.
Me too.
Because really, and now unfortunately it's being cut in coke as well, and I would have again snorted any line someone put in front of me. There was no. Yeah.
Can you remind me how you got your first day though?
How I got my first day?
What was day one sober?
Day one of my 7.5 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, day one was actually pretty interesting. So my last, hopefully last relapse was I came home and we were gifted a bottle of wine, and it was a screw top, which is one of the worst/best things for an alcoholic ever. Don't have to take out the opener and do the sound. My wife had no idea. I just unscrewed it. She was down in the bedroom changing our brand new baby's diaper, our second baby. And I just, without thinking, just opened it and chugged the whole bottle, basically. And I had no idea why. And the next morning, I was leaving my building. I live here in the city. I was leaving my building, and there was a guy in the lobby who I recognized from Perry Street, which is, of course, a meeting here in the city that I had been going to in and out of for a couple of years. And I recognized him. Michael A. sits in the front row at the 9 a.m. or did for many years. And I saw him, and I walked past him, I go, Perry Street? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, oh, hey. And we kind of said hello. He was helping another gentleman who lived in my building, I guess, an older man, like go get groceries or something. And he was about to leave as well. And he said, where are you going? And I was like, I'm going uptown. He's like, walk with me. I live in Chelsea. And I walked with him, up 8th Avenue and just kind of told him my story. And I was like, yeah, I relapsed a couple hours ago, like last night. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know what I was doing. And he's like, all right, well, here's my phone number, and I'll see you at Perry Street at 9 a.m. And I was like, okay. And he sits in the front row, like I said, and he saved a seat for me right next to him. And right away, it was clear that this was going to be a different journey for me. First of all, we in the biz now call that a God shot, right? But also, in the previous 4 years, one of my big sort of things that I now identify as me really resisting, I would sit in the back, I would have my hat on, my hood up, I would leave before the Serenity Prayer, I wouldn't talk to anybody, fellowship was not on the table, I was still just, isolating, even in these meetings. And right away, Michael A. is like, here you go, we're front row. Gave me the nudge to share, and I'm like, okay. And right away, I knew this was going to be a different journey. Interestingly, Michael has since told me he's never been in that building before or since. Amazing. He just happened to be like helping that guy that day or something. It was like an old friend, but he hasn't been back. Anyway, so that was my day one.
I love that. It's amazing. I think it was Johan Hari wrote in a book that connection is the opposite of addiction, and it sounds like the connection in that situation saved your life.
Yeah.
And that the connection is still saving your life, and you're still participating in that. I mean, that's why you came here.
Well, that's why I'm here. I mean, seriously, it obviously service is huge. Fellowship, connection. Yeah, I love that. Connection is the opposite of addiction.
I actually invented that.
That was great. Phrase. No, that was really, really good. Really good,
Thank
man.
you.
I'm impressed. I've heard it elsewhere.
Wow.
I've even seen it written on walls. You're famous,
I'm
bro.
very, very famous.
Yeah.
The cool thing is that when I was at Mountainside, it was my connection with Chris that started all this, which is why I'm here, which is very, emotional to me. Jana, when you're treating people, how often do you see connections sparking a change in your clients?
It's absolutely essential. I think, again, coming back to being held and watched and witnessed by people at your most vulnerable. I always say, most people that come into detox have had the worst week of their life. Just the worst. No one waltzes into detox. No one wants to be there. So you come into a space where, I will say, like Mountainside, where you're really met with a lot of compassion. I can speak, for our employees, we want to be there. So first of all, you have this presence of people that want to be with you. And then the community. We do have the most amazing people that walk through our doors, and they will, I think Rachel said, love you until you can love yourself. They will hold you, and you get this place as a grown-up, again, to say the things you're most embarrassed of, to share your most shameful things, not to humiliate you, not like 80s old school rehab where it's shame, 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 but to hold your stories and to see yourself in these other incredible people. When you share, and then you're sitting next to someone that's like, wow, you're a doctor, you're an author, you're doing these amazing things, and yet you feel just as embarrassed or sad as I do right now. It's incredible. So that community, and it's not, I think, also heavily depressive. You know, we talked a lot about humor. It's like this safe space to actually laugh about some of this, laugh that you're still here and be held by other people. Like, there's no one else that can understand it as well as people that have been through it. I do want to say, I just have to say hi to John. John's on. John, Rachel's dad. I love John because, speaking of community, he does that. He gives back to other parents. He sees other people struggling, and he gives people hope like no one else because he's been there. He knows what that feels like to love someone so desperately and be so scared. And I've watched John for years and years give that service. And so thank you, John. I don't want to blow up anything else, but you're amazing.
Amazing.
Joining us on Teams over there.
Dr. Hany, how often have you witnessed this connection change clients, addicts' lives?
It does, and I've seen it all the time. One of the best values of AA is that you surrender. You're not going to do that alone. You cannot do it alone. You have to do it with other people who have the same problem. The fellowship concept, that I am doing it, Jason is doing it, Pete is doing it, Rachel is doing it. We as humans, we prefer naturally to be in group. We built all this civilization not because we worked alone, because we worked in group. Addiction isolates you, takes you out of the group, out of the pack, and then start to attack you gradually until the end. So to fight that, and the same concept with depression, by the way. Depression also has a mind of its own. It does take you out of the pack, keeps you inside, creates a logic in your head that it's best for you to stay in your bed all the day. I just don't want to see anybody. I want to stay alone. Same thing with addiction. And we add to that with the shame and the stigma about it. You know, I'm not going out because what am I going to tell people? That I'm using? People are going to notice that I'm drinking. People are going to see the marks on my hand. So you get isolated. When we take you out of that, and now you have other fellow humans around you suffering from the same problem, providing you with love and care, that's when you start your journey of recovery.
Amazing. Thank you, Dr. Hany. And when Rich said recovery is love, it really spoke to me. And last week there was a guy at my meeting. He died with 30 years sober. His name was Ray, and everyone called him Ray the Clamor because he was a clamor on the Great South Bay on Long Island. And he would always say he came to give up his drinking and to give up his drug use, and he stayed to be a better person. He called it the greatest bait and switch that he ever had. He always also would say that if you stay in the herd, if you stay in the middle of the herd, you're not going to get picked off. And we were here to talk about other things besides connection. We're here to talk about legal weed and psychedelics and Ozempic, but connection and love seems so compelling after you watch a movie like that I'm happy that we covered those bases. Now, Dr. Hany, Ozempic or connection? What's better for recovery?
No, connect with Ozempic.
Okay.
No, I think connection is definitely the best. When it comes
wait, buprenorphine or connection?
Wow, that's a hard question.
That's a hard question.
It's like being at the eye doctor. You know, 1, 2. Ah, shit, they're the same. They're the same. I don't know what to pick.
Are you saying buprenorphine is connection, Jason?
Yes.
Oh my God.
It's 1 or 2. I don't know.
They serve a different kind of function. When it comes to buprenorphine, for instance, it just protects your brain from the overdose. If you're using it and you use a substance, the chances that you overdose is very high. But at the same time, connection is definitely a great thing. Now, Ozempic,
People don't realize the connection, the potential connection between Ozempic and recovery. And the more I learn about it, the more blown away I am.
Well, here is the thing. When it comes to any drug that we test for a medical condition, medical, mental, whatever kind of condition that we have, we really need to test for several levels of testing. We cannot just take a word of 100 people that tried it and it worked for them. We need to know how much of it works and how many times that we do that, and what kind of side effects on the short term and the long term. Maybe after it works for you for 6 months, you're going to have some sort of really bad side effects that come from it. So we need to study it properly. We need to get the proper dosing, proper pamphlet about it, and then we can prescribe it if it works. If it works, it works. That would be really great.
You know who's a big fan of Ozempic? Jana Wu.
Well, I think it does have potential for addictions. We've talked about for smoking, for particular, for alcohol, many things. But I do want to say what you were saying about research, I think is really important to think of kratom that way. I don't want to demonize kratom as a plant. I think it does have potential if it is regulated and tested appropriately, not tested by kratom distributors. If there can be actual research around it, I think it does. It was used for centuries without having the significant issues that we see now throughout the world. For centuries it was used way more safely, but unfortunately, similar to THC, it is being distilled down to the most psychoactive components. And so people are getting a very, very high without the full potential of the plant. And so it's not safe the way it is right now, but it doesn't mean that someday with proper testing and research.
I agree on that, but another thing that we want to add is also a trusted place that we get it from. Because talking about
the gas station isn't a safe place to purchase your drugs?
Well, not particularly. Fentanyl is everywhere. And those who might sell cannabis also at the same table, they would cut fentanyl. And that will catch, even the smallest amount can kill the human being. So if we have a place that tests and doses and research and do all of this, and then we come to the substance that will work, then why not?
And can I just say there is the first federally funded study now with Baylor University on kratom. So I'm really excited in 3 years we should have some results from that. But I think hopefully, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And in the past, how long has weed been legal in New York now? 10 years? 5 years? I have no idea. It seems like a long time. How has legal weed... What is it, 2021?
It's more recent. I feel like Connecticut is way more recent. Mass was 2015, Colorado 2012, Alaska, and another state were that era. And then later came New York and Connecticut.
Okay, well, weed is legal. You can smell it everywhere you go,
yes.
way more than when we were younger. Has it changed the landscape of recovery?
I actually want to answer this really quickly because I think one thing it's done that's very interesting is it's destigmatized it. So it's instead of being something that is illegal, it's something that's legal, accessible. It's been marketed, as a very healthy option in beautiful spaces and places. So just like that's happening, that also is what I see some of our goal is to make recovery that way, to destigmatize it, to bring it into all these safe, beautiful spaces. Like you said, 10, 20 years ago, people wouldn't be coming to gather publicly to share about these types of things with a big, incredible audience that have a lot of different things they could be doing tonight. So,
well, how has legal weed changed your guys treating addicts and alcoholics? Have you seen a lot of patients come in for THC dependency?
Honestly, I don't think it made a huge shift in terms of those who, people who want to use cannabis, they have been using it for quite some time. If you say that's legal, it doesn't really change anything in terms of the effects of the substance on the human brain. If you ask about, do you have anybody that comes in specifically for cannabis?
I remember when I was at Mountainside in 2011, and I was 35, and I was strung out on heroin, and there was a kid who came in for weed, and he was probably 17, maybe 16, and I was just like, this kid is going to learn some horrible stuff while he stays with us, and he did, and he left, and he kind of spun out horribly, but the amazing thing is now I think he's 10 years sober. And so sometimes legal weed can get you, and it wasn't even legal weed. I think he was just a stoner kid, and his parents were very worried about him. What I've been hearing about a lot is kids who are eating edibles and winding up in the ER from psychosis. Have you heard about this?
That's right. I was about also to add to your point that those who we say seeking help because of cannabis use are exactly what you just mentioned. Younger generation, like 17, 18, who excessively use cannabis, and cannabis is very well known to be linked to psychosis. So people start to act paranoid and isolate in their houses and maybe talk about hearing voices and so forth. And their families would bring them to the emergency room. From emergency room, they get admitted in psychiatry and started an antipsychotic. And we recommend highly that they stop using that. The problem with edibles, absolutely, despite the fact that it's more appealing because it doesn't have a smell. You can eat it and walk, nobody will smell it. The problem, it kicks in after a period of time. So you eat, you don't feel anything, you take a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, then you end up after 4 hours consuming a huge amount that leads for the psychosis that you're talking about.
Also, they really market these edibles to little kids. They make it look like cereal. They make it look like cookies. There are cookies, I think.
Yeah, I had goldfish once.
Really?
Yeah, weed goldfish. It was fucking awesome. Easy to travel with.
Cheddar?
Travel.
Oh, but was it cheddar flavored?
Oh, cheddar. Oh, it was, it was cheddar. There's the standard goldfish.
Excellent.
Throw them in a regular goldfish thing and hope your kid doesn't eat them. This is before kids.
And hope your kid doesn't eat them. Thank God you're sober, Jason Biggs.
Thank God. That's what I'm talking about. Thank God.
Another thing that seems to be popping up all over the place is ketamine.
Yes.
And ketamine for depression, and ketamine for trauma, and ketamine to get high. What were you going to say, Jason?
And also ketamine for addiction, right?
Yes.
As well, right? Yeah.
Did you enjoy ketamine in your old days?
I never. That was one that it eluded me.
Oh, it's a fantastic drug. Anyone here ever do ketamine? Just out of curiosity, raise your hand. Show of hands. Rich, you? Okay. Now let's talk about ketamine as curative. Doctor.
So
is it any good?
It is. It is not. It's not a bad medicine. We just had it for the first time in years that was approved for treatment of treatment-resistant depression. If you guys heard about it, but it's the intranasal one. I think it's probably 5 or 4 years ago that was approved, and it's a paradigm shift in the way that we address the depression. When you hear about depression and treatment, what comes in mind is always the SSRIs, which is the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So we're talking about the theory that the brain has lack of serotonin. We want to increase it to make people less depressed. Now, ketamine works in a completely different way, and it's proven to actually help in a fast way, in a very good way. Now, it does, but again, we'll come back to the dose, how we use it. The ketamine that you hear about, though, it's not the intranasal, it's the intravenous one. That you hear about it, that there's a clinic that will give you ketamine for depression or for whatever. It's an intravenous one, and this is completely different because we don't know what the dose is. We know the one with the intranasal. We know how it works and how often we do it. But the intravenous is the one. And we're doing research about it. It can help. There is some research going right now for methamphetamine use disorder that we might use ketamine, but we don't have the results yet.
I think similar, though, to buprenorphine, if someone is struggling with addictive behaviors and struggling with misusing substances maladaptively, it can be really problematic. Similar to buprenorphine strips. I mean, I've had many people, it's a wonderful medication, that misuse it and sort of game their strips. And
it's wonderful until they're putting the buprenorphine strips into their eyes.
Yeah. So I think, well, similar to ketamine, though, I have seen it, and again, it might be a skewed patient population because it's people seeking, treatment, that it has not, it has lost its usefulness, in which they're using it maladaptively. It's not helping their depression. Typically, they are also using other substances with it, drinking, using a lot of weed. So,
what does maladaptively mean?
Like not working for them?
So substance abuse that's maladaptive, that just means somebody who's struggling with substance use.
I would say so.
Okay.
We're going to have to fact check.
Well, it's a fancy phrase, and I want to dumb it down for a second. That's all. Yeah. What about the other trend that seems to be going just nuts is ayahuasca. Everybody seems to be seeking the answers with ayahuasca. And I've stumbled upon all these people with really large amounts of sober time that seem to be going on these ayahuasca retreats, to seek that. It's 10,000 hours of therapy. Jason Biggs, you run in a fast circle. Is there a lot of ayahuasca ceremony discussed?
My wife did ayahuasca. It's actually, you could see her do ayahuasca on Netflix. She did it. Chelsea Handler did a series of documentaries, including one called Chelsea Does Drugs. And my wife went with her to Peru, and it was all documented. Her, puking into a bucket and the whole thing. It changed her, for sure. She came back, and this was right after we had our first kid. So she, was just going through some stuff afterwards, and, certainly went down there. And she's been in therapy her whole life. I mean, she's certainly very therapized, but she went down there, hoping to find something. I mean, it was obviously kind of a fun thing and part of this filming, getting content, but she went in with an open mind, and she came back, and she was, had a very positive effect on her. It really put things into perspective. She basically had a great trip, put things into perspective about her parenting, and she overcame a lot of fear around that, and other things. And it was, it was very interesting, really, really interesting. So for me, I was already into my sober journey at this point, but it's certainly, I am also in therapy, and I have no reason not to believe in the therapeutic qualities of a lot of these, particularly hallucinogens. And, but it certainly made me go, is that something that, I've ultimately landed on, what? I've got a cure that's working. I've got a thing that's working for my cure right now. I've got the tools, I've got the medicine, don't need to add any other medicine. But yeah, it's certainly interesting. I imagine there are people out there who, and Doc and Jana, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say, this could be the thing that turns their life around, people who have been struggling and have not been able to find help elsewhere.
I would say, again, it could just be a skewed population, the skewed experiences. But I've worked with a lot of people, again, who have spent a lot of money on it, and on the travel and the experience, and typically with the goal of obtaining sobriety or having a transformation that was going to lead them to happiness. And it hasn't been as effective, but again, that could be skewed towards people that tend to struggle with substances. But that's been my experience. I know it is actually very popular in my community, like Fairfield moms. I mean, it definitely is something people want to. Parenting's hard. People want an escape. They want relief. They want that kind of experience. So I think it probably runs the gamut. So it's good to hear different experiences.
And Dr. Hany?
Well, to be clear, sorry, just to interrupt, my wife did not, she doesn't really drink. She's a normie, where she'll leave half a glass of champagne on the table like a fucking weirdo. But I don't really, so for her, it wasn't really about substances or drinking or anything. So just to be clear on that front, but it's certainly, in continuing the conversation around it after seeing her experience, it certainly piqued my curiosity when it comes to its efficacy on this front. So anyway, sorry.
When it comes to psychedelics or the hallucinogen, we categorize it as a substance that can cause addiction. It has a completely separate, it's a unique substance or group of substances that include, you said ayahuasca and psilocybin and LSD and acid and Molly and all of these. Their effect in the brain is completely different than other drugs. Most of the drugs of abuse, methamphetamine, cocaine, heroin, alcohol, they focus on increasing one certain neurotransmitter in the brain, right? Dopamine. Mm-hmm. That's what they go to dopamine. Hallucinogens, they don't. They do serotonin more. There are doubts that they actually can. Can it cause addiction? Does it cause withdrawal? Maybe psychological. Do people use it daily? Actually, when those who use psychedelics or hallucinogens, they tend to use it daily. They use it like every month or every weekend or maybe every 6 months or a year. Now,
when they do it daily, it's a huge, horrible problem.
It is a big problem. Now you need to look also at the historical perspective of how our community looked at psychedelics from the 70s, when the hippie movements and using all of these psychedelics and all of that. The DEA put it in Schedule 1. Schedule 1 means you cannot even do any research on it. It's not helpful, it's bad, it's terrible. The same place where we put really terrible drugs. But it's not the case. I think we need to provide evidence to the DEA and regulators to move it from this category to another category so we can do research on it.
I feel like that's what's happening. I think back then people were very fearful of the losing control of people to psychedelics. I think we've covered so much interesting ground. And Dr. Hany and Jana and I were talking downstairs about the many pathways into addiction and all of the different pathways out. And I think the most important thing is that people get a better life. It's not how you do it. It's doing it. And I really want to thank the great Jason Biggs.
Doctor.
The wonderful Jana Wu. And the great Dr. Hany. And if any of you guys have a last thing you want to say, we have like a minute and a half. I heard they got apple pie for you, Jason.
Okay, very funny.
I heard they did. I heard there was pie.
Jesus Christ. Well,
I heard they put ayahuasca in the pie. Jason
nice.
did.
I'm in.
All right, quick.
Can you treat my addiction if I just fuck it?
That's
okay.
what they wanted me to ask you,
great.
if you were willing to fuck the pie after the thing. But thank you guys very much. Thank you guys so much for coming. Really appreciate it. And thank you, Pete and Chris and Rachel and John. And thank you. Huh?
Q&A.
Oh, we have a Q&A. So does anybody have any questions for the illustrious? Yes, young lady.
So my main question is in regards to harm reduction. I'm a huge harm reduction advocate. And I also work as a peer recovery coach. Something that we've unfortunately been noticing, especially specific to Staten Island, where the stigma is horrendous. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's like barely the city, but like kind of. Anyway, we're noticing that overdose rates are raising there, and we're on track to surpass the Bronx in terms of our overdose rates and to have the highest rate in the entire city. And we have substances now like synthetic fentanyl, xylazine that are resistant to the use of naloxone and Narcan. I understand that the best practice is to still administer the Narcan and naloxone, but is there anything in the pipeline being developed that could help reverse overdoses of these substances? Or are we just going to have to keep distributing like xylazine testing strips and fentanyl testing strips? That's a
great question.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There is a higher dose of Narcan that was approved recently that hopefully will be able to do, but it's not. It's really hard. The development of the drug of abuse industry is way faster than we can catch up with. And I think the best way, like you just mentioned about the test strips, the harm reduction style and trying to prevent that from happening. If we are able to do needle exchange program, don't use alone, calling people. And the last thing is that we have to, here in New York, we have safe injection site. I'm not sure if you guys in agreement with this or not, but I'm a huge advocate for these. You have your drugs, come and use it here, please, and we're gonna save your life. So we're gonna keep doing that until we have something new.
Awesome. Anybody else have any questions? Yes, Chris.
I just wanted to come back to the ayahuasca thing, not for personal interest. No, so I have a lot of friends who are in active recovery, but still will see ayahuasca or psilocybin as not drugs in their mind, having come out. And like, what do you make of that, of people who end up sort of turning to, oh, well, now I do retreats every month for ayahuasca, and that's my healing, but is that still just a new form of drug use?
Who's your question?
Yeah.
And look, any substance that is psychoactive it is a drug. You don't say, it's a plant, it's not going to do anything. It goes to your brain, it changes the way that you feel. That's a psychoactive substance. If it causes dependence or not, that's a different story. If it causes addiction or not, that's another story. But again, when it comes to use substance that we don't know how they work, we don't know how much, just be careful. That's all what I can say. Just be careful with it. Use as little as you could. Again, it's a harm reduction style.
Question for you too. Do you have any thoughts on MDMA as a tool for marriage counseling?
There's popular.
It's for you.
This is Mormons. For Mormons. Mormons who won't drink caffeine are using MDMA as a marriage counselor.
My opinion on it?
The doctors.
Oh, the doctor.
I felt like he's a good one to do that.
We actually want to know if you sucked on a pacifier when you would take MDMA at the club. That's all we want to know from you.
On or off?
We have a lot of research to support that psychedelic assisted psychotherapy can work and help people relax and start to open and talk about things. So we have good evidence to help with PTSD, especially at the VA, that they do psychedelic assisted or hallucinogen assisted. So I don't see. Again, if you're talking about a specific population that they don't have access to maybe marriage counseling or it's frowned upon, it's an alternative. It's, again, harm reduction style. I would definitely recommend marriage counseling that's properly done by a professional. But if you don't want to do whatever reason and you want to try something else, try it in a safe way.
I think partially, too, it's a good question, though. Yeah.
Sure.
I've read that as well. And I think a lot of it is about truly informed consent about risks and potential. Right. So if you have a history of addiction, you have to always be your best advocate and letting your practitioner know, listen, I have a history of addiction. I was addicted to this, this, and this, and making an informed decision to know how that substance might affect your own personal brain chemistry. Similar to THC, it's not about demonizing any substance. It's about, do I have a proclivity and a mental health history that makes me have a greater potential to schizoaffective disorder, schizophrenia, and psychosis? Then maybe I shouldn't use it. People having this information out there that we all have different body chemistry. So
that's kind of your job, right? It's the risk.
Yes, absolutely.
Risk and what's potential risk, what's the potential reward.
I like that. That's our job. It's to tell people, even with the drugs, even with heroin causes this and that and the other, will make you feel great. We have to acknowledge that drugs feel good. It will make you feel great, but you will have this. You want that to be part of your lifestyle, that's completely fine. Sign on it as long as you know the risks and the benefits.
Dr. Kuba, do you have a question?
I do. Many of us are in the field, love what Mountainside does, love bringing everyone together tonight for that beautiful movie. What would be sort of the take-home message or the call to action for everyone here in the audience? What do you want us to leave with?
I think we should.
There's a pie in the dressing room, I guess, that if you guys just give me 10 minutes alone and then you guys can take it, do whatever the fuck you want with it.
I think the most important message is that there's a diverse number of people who can get afflicted. There's a diverse number of people who can get into serious pain and problems, and then there's still a diverse number of people that can get better and get hope and find each other. And we get to come here, get together, and celebrate the fact that there is hope and love. Yes.
Question here too.
Yes.
Well, that was such a nice one to end on, but perhaps this is also looking forward. Hi. So even though drug overdose deaths are going down, I know there's still a surge in certain substance use, especially unregulated substance use in young people. So how do you hold both of those to be true at the same time? And does that say anything in particular about what this crisis could look like moving forward?
I just want to point out that the reduction in overdose does not necessarily mean a reduction in the use. let's think of it this way. Let's say that, lung cancer, we just discover something to treat it. Doesn't mean that the numbers of newly diagnosed lung cancer are going down. It's just we're able to treat it more. In fact, if you think about it, you'll have more people with addiction because we're keeping people alive, right? Because the numbers will increase, because those who were dying, now they are not, so they are still having the disease. Part of your question was about the kids using?
Maybe letting us increase in young people.
Yes, and we're in an area or an era where access to drugs on social media, and it causes, one hand, the stressors for the kids. At the same time, it gives them tremendous access, way more than 20 years ago.
The other thing that Dr. Hany said to me before we started is, as long as people can be alive, if there are less deaths, it's more people can get well and more people can find recovery and find a better quality of life. We have time for one last question.
Can I answer her question?
Yes, please,
one more
Jana,
thing?
please.
I think, too, one thing we've seen be really successful, and again, tends to be more adult population, but we started this crisis intervention team, and what I love about it is it intervenes before there's a crisis. And I wish there was something like that in schools, where before there's a crisis, when you think things are going awry, you had a safe space for families to call and be like, I'm concerned, something doesn't look right. Can someone that can reach my teen, can someone that can reach my kid talk to them, like on a peer-to-peer level? And we've seen such tremendous results with that. Rachel's on that team, and it's amazing of catching people before they fall, and Justin. So I think that there's ways that this could be on a bigger scale. We know peer-to-peer is really important too. And I think that's especially effective with kids. They're going to listen way more peer-to-peer than they are to any of us, right? It's really hard. So I think if we take some of the things that we find so effective with adults, and if we could bring them down as a community, that would be really effective. And to Dr. Lisa, what I would say is, heal yourself, heal your family, heal your community. The work we do healing ourselves is so incredibly transformative. And that's always my hope with the work that I do, that's not just healing one person, that you heal that whole system.
Thank you. Let's hear it for Jana. That's beautiful. One last question.
Hi. Thank y'all so much for your time and your input and the vulnerability. I've noticed a real uptick in marketing and products related to specifically beverages, that being maybe THC, CBD, even functional mushrooms from lion's manes, ashwagandha, you name it. I'm wondering, do y'all see that as gateway experiences towards addiction?
I'd say definitely, but
yes.
Doctor, yes?
Yes, for sure. I think it is, and I think for us as a community, we should work on regulating such the components and make sure that this is just not harming our kids. It's hard, and the more that it's growing faster that we can address. The more that you discover one and say, okay, we shouldn't be doing this, they're gonna come another one, and so forth. So. The best thing also to work on is educating humans to avoid that, as opposed to trying to cut the supply dry. Sorry.
I know. I think that one thing, I love that you brought that up, and it's one of my biggest frustrations, because the way social media is now, where it's so relatable, where people, and especially young people, can feel so connected and see themselves, by people that look like them selling things. It's a highly curated, highly edited version that's put out there of what these substances do. So again, it's not, to me, informed consent when we know that social media can be very manipulative on our neural patterning. That we can see a different message and have it translate a different way. So I think it's scary to me. So again, going back to more education, telling people and showing them sort of the other side, what's really underneath and behind sort of that glossier image of this being the cure-all for everything. It goes back to, too, people are in pain. We're all suffering from something. And so I think, unfortunately, advertisers can grab onto that.
I have a 15-year-old daughter, and her friends are all vaping and taking edibles, and it's all crazy. And I was very open with my 15-year-old. And she was like, well, Dad, I'm not drinking. I'm not doing any of that. And I said, well, I wasn't doing that when I was 15 either. You don't know when it can happen. And all I can say is you can't stop anybody from seeing anything, and you can't stop anybody from doing anything. All we can do, all I can do as a person in recovery is share what happened to me and hope they make informed decisions.
We're wired, our brains are wired to accommodate and take a specific level of dopamine. Once you exceed that with one substance, you would want to increase that with the second one, with the third one. You hear about the one that will give you the most. I'll tell you this small story. A couple of my patients would say, when we hear there is an overdose, like a specific drug dealer that sells heroin or fentanyl,
that's what we want. That's what we want. Yeah.
That's where we go to, and it just blew my mind. You go to the person that killed people.
Because that would never kill me. I could survive that.
So I'll go and seek that because I want the maximum dopamine.
Absolutely. We have one more, Adriana. One more question.
I'll be very quick. My name is Serena. I run a program that takes in animals for people that are going to treatment, and you guys talk a lot about connection tonight. So my question is quick and twofold. First of all, I would like to know what you guys see the biggest barriers are to treatment, maybe the top 3, why people aren't going into treatment, and if that includes animals. And then also, do you guys imagine that animals can be a part of the clinical setting moving forward and being a part of the therapeutic experience for people? Because we know that people open up about their trauma a lot more if they just simply have a pet in the room. So do you see that being part of addiction recovery in the future?
Jana Wu?
Absolutely. I would say, too, I always think of Egyptians, the Chinese buried temples. There are animals with them. Animals are as old as time, as our human relationship and the compassion. I think that's what it is, the compassion that animals show us back and loving us, their guard, their eyes. So I think absolutely it can be absolutely essential to healing and recovery. And there's a lot of great research on the healing curative factors with animals and PTSD, particularly horses, veterans, adopted children, transracial adoption, all these different places where it's been so effective. And we know too, we have worked, Mountainside has worked very closely with some local farms and worked with horses and done some groups in these places. So I definitely think there's a place for that.
I hail from Egypt, so I confirm that. Yes, we actually, it's very common to have therapy dogs in the clinics at Northwell. We have, and used to work at Mount Sinai, we have a therapy dog that came and people loved it. It made a huge difference. It was a hit whenever we bring a therapy dog, and I'm sure that we can bring more animals as well.
Jason, do you love
animals
too?
Was he a good boy? Was he a good boy? I love dogs. Oh my God, are you kidding? I was just thinking about, as Jana was talking, I'm sure a lot of people who were, seeking help, especially for the first time, but they're just coming out of their use and must feel very, I felt very unlovable. I felt like I had hurt a lot of people. It's just, to have that unconditional love and attention, and it's so cathartic, of course, petting a dog and being around a dog. I don't know, I think it's a brilliant thing, and I love what you're doing, so that's pretty fantastic.
It does release oxytocin, too.
There you go, oxytocin.
There
you go.
To pet an animal.
All right.
Yep. You said they wanted the 3 top barriers. I think one barrier is denial. The person just deny they have a problem.
Would you say denial ain't just a river in Egypt?
That's a good one.
You're asking the right guy.
I know. It is a
It is actually a river in
yes.
Egypt, yeah.
So denial is 1, stigma is 2, healthcare problems as insurance and access is the 3rd.
Absolutely.
Do we have any more questions, or can we get out of this hot attic? Yes. Yes.
I'm almost 10 years sober, and my mother was an alcoholic. And she went in and out of rehab over and over and over and over. And she never got it, but she died from her addiction. And I hear about the medications, and this is old school thinking, but it was like, if you take the medication, you're weak. You should be doing this on your own, right? So I would love just to be a little more educated on the medication that takes away the craving, right? Is that what it is? Yeah. So it takes away the craving, but then you still got to do the work.
Correct.
You know, you would be surprised that in the medical field, in the addiction field, that some providers would actually encourage people against medication. Imagine that you have a tool that would help you. Imagine that you have a tool that help your blood pressure to stay at the same level, and your diabetes will control, your headache that gonna, and like, no, I will tough it up. I'm gonna do it myself. This is me weak. Imagine that. The way that we don't think, it's heartbreaking. We're not thinking about it as the way it is a medical condition. It's just a medical condition.
And it's really just about quality of life and what we can do to be capable of being of service, being kind, having a nice life, and giving nice lives to other people. Let's hear it one more time for the panel. Jason, Jana, Dr. Hany. Thank you, guys. Let's hear it for Mountainside, Rich.
Well, thank you very much. You know that what I learned today, my name is Andre, I'm the CEO for Mountainside. Thank you very much for being at our house here in New York. And what I learned today is that probably we should have a series of meetings like this because there's so much knowledge, isn't it? And what I also understood today is that probably what prevents us to being happy, and whatever happy means to anybody of us, is probably ignorance, isn't it? Like we don't understand, or we don't have enough information, or we don't know who can support. And what we saw today was a wealth of knowledge, isn't it? People sharing stories and sharing, okay, this can work, that could work, but what about that? What about this? And I think that maybe we should do that more often and be more present to each other, and in terms of sharing what we know that sometimes worked for us or didn't work for us, that could probably help somebody that needs help. So I want to thank very much everybody and for the hard work. Olivia, I want to thank you for all the... Olivia is our marketing head. She worked really hard to have us here today. Good job. And I want to invite you guys all for refreshments at the second floor where we can continue to share and continue to learn more.